Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Friday, all of today's guests, including Thomas Drance, standing by, brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Looking for a midweek escape close to home? BC residents save 15% on weekday stays at the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. It's in Parksville. Relax by the ocean, enjoy great dining, and unwind with island hospitality. Book now at Bayside-ResortParksville.com. Just before we get to Thomas, Delaney's OK Tire in Langley and Aldergrove inbox. This is from Slate Bag in Mission.
Yeah.
Bojangles is more like Popeyes than KFC.
Really?
Yeah.
I know Slate Bag. He's a good guy.
What, do you know?
No, I know.
Bojangles, Popeyes, or KFC?
KFC's number one.
The kids like Popeyes.
No,
Yeah.
KFC going back to the 70s and 80s.
Okay. Which it isn't
What are you
anymore.
talking about, Don?
Popeyes is better.
I talked to Slate Bag.
Slate Bag. Good guy.
That should have
Well,
been.
he didn't say he liked one more than other.
He said it's
the
like
other.
that.
He said
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm not a Popeyes guy. It's
The other one
KFC.
down there is Raising Cane's. That's really popular right now too.
Speaking of fried chicken, I don't know what the segue is here. From The Athletic, Thomas Drance, how are you, sir?
Doing well, gentlemen. Doing very well indeed. I like Popeyes. I honestly, I haven't met a fried chicken that I don't like. So I'll take care of the segue for you. If you're like, speaking of fried chicken, Thomas Drance, it's like, yeah, that's perfectly fair. Love it. Love it every day.
Monday on the show, we'll talk Mary Browns.
yeah.
So we'll look forward to that. Hey,
fan.
maybe you could, there you go. You haven't met a fried chicken you don't like. We've been talking about Vasily Podkolzin. A goal and assist last night in a crucial game. Well,
Awesome.
all crucial in the Cup final. So what is he doing with Edmonton that he wasn't doing in Vancouver?
Unfortunately, not much has changed except that he's had a predictable role. I mean, honestly, Edmonton committed to putting him in a predictable role. He played a lot with Draisaitl in the middle six over the course of the season. It was a pretty consistent role. The goal kind of, obviously there's some expectation to produce offense when you're playing with Draisaitl, but also not responsibility to manufacture it yourself, right? It was, get in on the forecheck, play with some energy, try to build up some confidence, work hard. And I think that work ethic, from what I understand, talking to people around that team, I think the work ethic that Podkolzin always had, that always impressed the Canucks, has earned him a lot of respect and a lot of patience in that Oilers dressing room. And that's a veteran dressing room, right? I mean, they can tell the difference. But he was just consistently deployed. And over the course of the season, seemed to gather some confidence. Now, it hasn't been perfect, right? I don't know that the hands will ever play up to allow him to be, even one of those like complimentary digger type top six forwards in that sort of Val Nichushkin, Zach Hyman mold. He's not a great finisher. He makes some interesting decisions with the puck, and we saw that obviously on the 4-1 goal that really broke Edmonton's back in Game 3. But a huge bounce-back performance for him. I mean, he scores a goal from a gritty area of the ice. Was always the bet with Podkolzin, that this is the sort of player that can come on and be a strong presence at the pointy end of the season in the toughest games of the year. And then, that the assist that he picks up, that's a heads-up play on that outlet to Draisaitl, which sets up, it was a lucky goal, but nonetheless, the overtime game winner. And that's sort of heads-up, creative play that Podkolzin hasn't always had in his bag. So I think he played certainly in Game 4 with a lot of confidence, clearly wanted to avenge himself after that ugly giveaway in Game 3, and did. Was a big part of that Oilers comeback win. And, I think more than anything, when the Canucks look back on what went wrong, right? Podkolzin played 25 NHL games with his first NHL head coach in Travis Green. He came on strong at the end of his rookie year under Bruce Boudreau, but sort of sagged back down the lineup. There was never like a stretch of even like 25 games. Like, this is what really annoys me about the Podkolzin story from a Canucks perspective, gentlemen. There was never like a 25, 30 game stretch where the team just put him on the fourth line and said, hey, play with energy. Your minutes aren't going to change. If you make a mistake, no big deal. But all we want is for you to play with energy, use that frame, to finish some hits, play straight line hockey. They never just gave him sort of a stretch where it was fine to just kind of get your feet wet and build some momentum at the NHL level. Across 3 different coaches, nobody ever gave him that sort of developmental stretch to just find his footing at the NHL level. Like one night he was on the top line, one night he was scratched, one night he was on the fourth line playing 6 minutes, the next night he was on the third line playing 8, the next night he was scratched, then he got another shot in the top 6. It was just a yo-yo developmentally, and I think that hurt him, especially because, you know, one thing I think has helped for him in Edmonton is that he's kind of got out of his own way. He's a little bit too smart. He's a bit of a thinker on the ice. He struggles to play instinctively. And I always figured, man, why? Why is this club not just giving this guy the sort of runway that we saw like Bo Horvat get when he was stapled to Derek Dorsett on that fourth line in his rookie year in Vancouver, where it was just consistent deployment, simplify, get your feet under you at the NHL level? Because, look, he's got a unique profile, and that unique profile is helping the Edmonton Oilers win games. It's a really big missed developmental opportunity by this regime and the regime that preceded them.
Hey, Thomas, 2.5 weeks and July 1st is going to be here. How is Vancouver? You did difference makers. We saw them last night. Canucks top 6 issues. I mean, how are they going to fix these? The prices are high out there. It's not cheap getting top 6 talent, and that's what the Canucks need. So how are they going to do it between now and July 1st?
Well, I think, you know, forget what's cheap and what's not, right? It's going to be expensive. It's going to be expensive, and that's a price that the Canucks are going to have to be willing to pay. You know, they need top 6 help, and they need young top 6 help. And I think that's really where the rubber meets the road here. You know, we know the uncertainty that surrounds this team, right? Like, we know that at this point, this elite young core, I think it's fair to describe them as an underachieving core, right? And an underachieving core with significant future uncertainty ahead of them, right? Connor Garland becomes extension eligible on July 1. Thatcher Demko dealt with 3 extended injury-related absences this past season and becomes extension eligible on July 1. Quinn Hughes becomes extension eligible the year after that. And Elias Pettersson was a shadow of the player that the Canucks signed him to be over the course of the past 14 to 15 months now. So, you know, there's a lot of question marks around this group. And as such, you know, I think it's understandable why the Canucks would want to would want to make sure to protect their market effectively and be an appealing destination to remain for their captain and you know, the best defender in franchise history in Quinn Hughes over the course of the next 12 months as they sort of position themselves to make him an extension offer and ideally keep him in Vancouver for a long time to come. So I think that's a justifiable route for this club to take. I think spending future assets this summer makes sense to sort of bolster this team's short-term fortunes, whether you're appealing to Quinn Hughes and trying to convince him to stay or taking one last run with the greatest defender in franchise history. I mean, both sort of extremes are worth pursuing in my mind, even at the cost of a first-round pick, even at the cost of multiple first-round picks potentially. But I do think in sort of executing that, it's critical that the club at least build themselves a hedge position, at least not do too much damage so that, you know, the possible pain that may loom on the other side of this season, if it doesn't go their way, doesn't become like another decade of pain, especially on the heels of a Canucks era that's been wildly disappointing, dispiriting, inconsistent. And so, you know, I think targeting younger players, like, you're going to pay, Rick, right? You're going to pay if you're going to upgrade your top 6. So make sure that the price you're paying is going to be for a player with a long runway, with real upside, the ability to actually, you know, be a difference maker for your franchise and a game breaker going forward. And I think that's the key here. It's not about the Canucks finding cheap solutions. It's the Canucks are going to have to find expensive solutions. It's just about making sure that the bets you're placing are on some players with some runway and some players with the sort of upside that can actually change the trajectory of this franchise.
You know, they're far apart with Pius Suter. They don't want to make the same mistake they did with I think they went to a number with Joshua last year. They don't want to go to do that 2 years in a row. Are you surprised they're far apart with Suter right now?
I'm not really surprised. I mean, this was sort of always a possibility, right? If it had been the sort of priority where you were going to make him the kind of offer that he was going to be likely to demand on July 1st, like, that's the sort of thing you get done before the trade deadline. I think more than anything, gentlemen, I just look back on it and think, you're talking about the Canucks facing some difficulty probably in acquiring the sort of reinforcements they need, right? And what's the reason for that, Rick? Right?
Yeah.
Not enough cap space, not enough assets. Right? Their prospects aren't necessarily as desirable as some of the other buyers' prospects, and on and on. And so I sort of just go back to that trade deadline and think like, we didn't know Demko wasn't healthy and up and running yet. Quinn Hughes was out of the lineup, and we didn't know if he was going to be 100% down the stretch. Elias Pettersson, we had a good sense, was not going to be at his best going forward. And the Canucks still sort of declined to sell. They never sell at the deadline. Organizationally speaking, that's not just Jim Rutherford and company. I mean, they've actually sold here and there, Luke Schenn, Tyler Mott, that caliber of player at trade deadlines past. But organizationally, I mean, going back to like Verbata and Hamhuis and across a decade, this organization never avails themselves of some of the advantages that come with having a disappointing season. The ability to use the win now urgency that other teams feel at the deadline to sort of restock your organization with hockey value. And even if Brock Besser was only going to return a second or 2 seconds, and even if Pius Suter was only going to return a second-round pick, I mean, those are 3 additional assets that you'd have to shop with right now, right? And that's kind of where I still just sort of look at that issue, what transpired at the deadline, and think that's just another reason why this team is, trying to Houdini it here, right? Is trying to escape from a locked box that's been dropped off a bridge into a freezing cold lake. Whereas availing themselves of the edges given to a seller at the trade deadline would at least allow them to perform this stunt while holding the key.
That's a visual.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you one more question. I'm getting the wrap-up sign here from Ryan Henderson.
I'll go fast. Pull out the stopwatch.
I got it. Let's go. Let's go. Donnie, give him one. 20-second limit. 20's only.
Do you
20.
like pickles on your chicken sandwich?
Go. 20 seconds.
The thing about pickles, no, of course. Who doesn't like pickles? Extra pickles, baby. Let's go. Pickles, hot sauce. Let's go.
9 seconds. Very good.
This is
That's got to be a record for
what
you.
a Friday this is.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you. The moment you asked it, I was like, oh no. Describing my love for pickles, this could take a while.
We don't want to get too deep into that, Thomas. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
You bet.